This part is about secrets and lies. So I want you to think, did you ever tell lies or make any jokes as a child, a hoax on people? Or do you have a guilty secret that you have kept hidden for so many years? All right, you can tell me. I'm not gonna tell anyone. All right, so we're going to listen now to four people calling into a radio program called Confessions. Okay, and we're going to match the pictures with the confessions and correct the statements. Okay, so we have here this is picture letter A and picture letter B and C and D. Okay, so let's try to listen together. You can take notes now, get your pen and paper, and let's start.
Now it's that time again in the show when we hear your guiltiest secrets and your most terrible lies. Yes, it's confessions time. Be prepared for astonishing admissions before you decide who can be forgiven. Our first caller is Robert from Surrey. Time to get your secret off your chest, Robert.
Well, Simon, I'm ashamed to say, but during my final year at school, it was an all-boys school, and it was a long time ago.
Right.
We had to take lots of exams to get what was then called the school certificate.
Mm-hmm.
Our form teacher, he was a miserable man, called Mr. Roper, was also our history teacher, and in those days, the teachers set our final exam papers. Now, Mr. Roper was never the most encouraging of teachers. Well, he often told us that we were no good and we would never pass the certificate. Anyway,
Okay.
one day, just before our exams, he excused himself from our history class, and unusually for him, he didn't lock his desk. So, with my fellow classmates watching intently, I took it upon myself to go to the front of the class and look inside his desk. There, like glistening treasure, was our exam paper. Keeping an eye on the classroom door, I read out all the questions to my eager audience. I had never known them so silent or attentive. I then quickly replaced the paper and returned to my seat. Mr. Roper came back into the classroom to find the whole class looking quietly studious. Well, you can imagine, the result was that everybody passed the exam.
Of course.
The school had never known such splendid results, and Mr. Roper was complimented on the high quality of his teaching. I ask forgiveness, please, for putting 30 students out into the world in possession of the school certificate which they did not deserve. However, some of them did go on to become captains of industry and have careers as MPs and judges.
Oh, Robert, that was a naughty thing to do, but we've all been tempted when it comes to exams. Now, on to Kevin from London.
Yeah, all right, Simon. I'm a big Spurs fan, and a few years ago found myself in the awkward situation of marrying into a family of die-hard Chelsea supporters. One Saturday afternoon, I was at home relaxing, watching the football results, while my then 4-year-old daughter was at the other end of the sofa colouring in.
Mm-hmm.
she suddenly looked up at me and asked, "Daddy, what football team do you support?" I told her Tottenham Hotspur, and her next words made my blood run cold. "Really? I support Chelsea."
No.
I was horrified. The thought of my darling daughter becoming a Chelsea fan was just too much. So, without really thinking, I replied, "Well, that's a shame because Father Christmas does not visit children who support Chelsea." My daughter looked at me in horror, and I realised the full weight of the statement I'd just made. The natural thing to do at this point would have been to give her a hug and tell her that Daddy was only joking. But instead, I gave her a hug and told her not to worry, as all she needed to do was to become a Spurs fan, and I would ring Father Christmas and she'd be back on his list. Now, I would like to beg forgiveness from my lovely daughter for any sleepless nights I may have caused her.
Feel better now, Kevin? I really hope your little girl isn't scarred for life. So, moving on to the ladies. Surely they can't have such a shocking secret. Let's hear from Jane and find out. Jane from York.
When I was 15, I tried to earn a bit of extra money by waitressing at a local restaurant.
Right.
This restaurant was very famous for an incredible fish soup, which was served with secret ingredients. I'd been given a little to try once, and it really was delicious. One night, when a table ordered the special dish, I was called by the chef to collect it from the kitchen.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, it smelt absolutely fantastic, and my mouth started watering. Between the kitchen and the restaurant, there was a small corridor, not visible from the kitchen or the dining area. The temptation was too great. I balanced the heavy soup dish in one hand, lifted the spoon with the other, and poured the soup into my mouth. What I hadn't considered was that the soup would be scalding hot.
Ow.
There I was in the corridor, unable to scream or make any noise. The boiling liquid began peeling the skin away from the roof of my mouth, and I was in agony. Terrified that the chef's wife would catch me, I did the only thing I could. I spat the soup back into the dish. Then I heard footsteps from the kitchen. There was no other option. I put my shoulders back, walked confidently out into the restaurant, and started to serve the soup to the poor unsuspecting diners who had no idea that there was a little extra ingredient amongst the mussels and monkfish. I asked forgiveness for my dreadful deed. I learned my lesson and never did it again.
All I can say to you, Jane, is remind me never, ever to order the soup when I'm in York. And our final caller is Maggie from Wales. What, dear Maggie, is your guilty secret?
Hello there. When I was an au pair working in France, I used to travel across by coach and ferry. It was quite a long and difficult journey, and I preferred to travel at night in the hope of sleeping most of the way.
Mm-hmm.
Usually I was lucky enough to sit next to someone who, like me, just wanted to get some shut-eye. But on one particular occasion, I found myself squashed into a corner by a large smelly, chatty man.
Oh, lovely.
I politely engaged in conversation, hoping that he would eventually give up, but he didn't. Finally, between Calais and Paris, the coach made a pit stop, and many of the passengers got off to stretch their legs.
Right.
After walking around for 10 minutes, I got back on the coach. There was no sign of my neighbour. The driver asked if everyone was back on board, but I couldn't speak. Perhaps it was the prospect of some much-needed peace and quiet, but I said nothing. Maybe he'd only been going this far anyway. Then I looked out of the window and saw the man running across the car park, waving frantically as we drove off into the night.
No.
I never even attempted to get the driver to stop. Oh, I couldn't think of a good reason why I hadn't noticed the man was missing in the first place. So, when I got off the coach in the cold light of dawn, I disappeared before the driver realised that the man wasn't there. I now meekly seek forgiveness for leaving a poor man stranded in a foreign motorway service station in the dead of night. I've been haunted by the vision of him running after us ever since.
So, there you have it, dear listeners. Today's 4 fibbers and wrongdoers. Who, if anyone, can we forgive?
This is hilarious, right? Well, if you had any difficulty while you are listening, you can check the tape script at the end of the book. So let's try to answer together. So we have number 1 here is going to be with picture letter B. Very good. And number 2, Kevin's daughter, it's going to be with picture number or letter C, right? Where is it? Here it is. Okay. And then Jane burned one of the diners is going to be letter A, and the last one, Maggie, is going to be letter D. Okay, so let's try to correct it together. So number 1, Robert's actions affected his classmates badly for the rest of their lives. Well, actually, his actions meant that all his classmates passed the school certificate. Number 2, Kevin's daughter liked football. She supported Manchester United. So actually, Kevin's daughter said that she supported Chelsea, and like his wife's, and she supported the same team that like his wife's family. Number 3, Jane burned one of the diners in the restaurant when she served the soup. Well, actually, she burned her own mouth by tasting the soup before she served it. And the last one, Maggie told the coach driver about the missing man when they got to Paris. No, actually, she got out before the driver realized that the man was missing. So what do you think of these lies? Do you have any similar lies? And do you think that one of them should be forgiven for their action? Which one of them do you think it's a small lie, and which one was like it was a really bad lie that affected people badly? You can listen one more time, and we're going to answer these questions. So we have Robert says, I had never known them so silent or attentive. So who were they, and why were they so attentive, and why does Robert feel guilty? So they refers to Robert's classmates, and they were attentive because they were reading out the questions from the school certificate exam, and he feels guilty because 30 students in his class passed the exam when they didn't deserve to do this. Number 2, Kevin says, I realized the full weight of the statement I had just made. What was the statement, and why does Kevin feel guilty? So the statement was that Father Christmas doesn't visit children who support Chelsea and he feels guilty. He hadn't tell his daughter that he was just joking. So he might have caused her some sleepless nights. And the third one, Jane says, there was no other option. Why was this? And what had she done? And what did she do next? So what she did, she said this sentence because she heard someone coming from the kitchen, and she had tasted the soup and burned her mouth, and then she spat the hot liquid back into the dish. Yeah, I know. And she went into the restaurant and served the soup anyways. And the last one was Maggie, who said, but I said nothing. What about, if you remember, this is like the short question, what did she say this about? And why did she say nothing? And why does she feel guilty? Because she didn't tell the driver about the man who hadn't come back to the coach, and that she said that the chatty man hadn't come, and because she wanted some peace and quiet time, so she could sleep on the journey, and she feels guilty because the man was left alone in the motorway station. Now let's read these expressions together and tell me which extract they go to and what do they refer to. So we have a diehard supporter. That was Kevin talking about his wife's family. And here it's like to mean like a very strong supporter of something, as we have taken in the video of the vocabulary. And then we have waving frantically. So waving frantically, it was Maggie talking about the man, the chatty man in the bus. Eager audience, if you remember, it was talking about Robert talking about his classmates. Glistening treasure, again, it was Robert talking about his classmates, and the exam. He was talking about the exam here. Made my blood run cold. This was Kevin talking about his daughter, and this expression means like a lot of fear. Stretch their legs here when Maggie was talking about the passengers, and scalding hot, if you remember, it was about the soup. Okay, and then we have extra ingredient. It's also about the soup, like Jane was talking about the soup. And scarred for life, it will be when the presenter was talking about Kevin's daughter, that she had like a strong mental effect because of this lie. Have you ever lied a white lie, or someone lied to you before a white lie, and how did you feel about it? And do you think it's okay to lie or keep a secret? And what are the occasions that you had the possibility that you were forced to lie before? I want you to gather your ideas, and maybe you can let me know. You can write your answers in the comments under the video. And now let's get ready for the next video.